I'm quite sure that the only time that Kenyans care about who wins an election is when people are going for those presidential elections, be it parliamentary or gubernatorial or senatorial seats. But after that, once these people have been in office and the campaigns are over, the elections are over, and people have been sworn in, whatever people like Kenyans in mature democracies consider is on how those people work in those offices and how accountable they are to the people through their actions and programs and strategies that they put in place to ensure that the livelihoods of those who elected them are deserving. Welcome to the Bold Analysis. My name is Frank. I must start by thanking you for being a valued member of this channel. So, I'm doing this video with quite a heavy heart. I feel like and I'm bleeding for my country, Kenya, because of politics instituted around people who seem not to be heeding or feeling the general thoughts of the Kenyan people. This is in connection even with the recent discoveries that were made within Kware in Pipeline Embakasi, where more than 42 bodies or so were discovered rotting, people in sacks. You know, it is quite unfortunate scenes that we've been seeing. Then whatever continued to pain me on this was the level of police work that was done there. Because we've seen that the Directorate of Criminal Investigations have been the lead investigators in this. But the way they are handling the media attention around this and the public interests on this is totally quite unprofessional. Because it has turned out to be a game of influencers, or rather bloggers, versus the government. In an event or in a case where the government should only stick to giving facts and information as per the truth as it is, without diverging so much into the politics that surround these critical issues. So that has been the first instance. You know, those 42 people were killed and have been following on the addresses that have been made by various politicians. Those are submissions, of course, leaders and different sectors and different people from different backgrounds, and even the common mwananchi in the regards to the killings. But one thing that is quite coming out clear is that the government is not substantive, or rather clear or conscious in the manner in which it's portraying its communicational agenda around these Embakasi killings. You know, we were yesterday treated to a stunt where there was an alleged arrested suspect in regards to the killing, whom the police say they are connecting to those killings, whom was arrested within somewhere in Soweto, I think in Kayole, within Embakasi. But people have been saying that no, you're not telling us the truth in regards to this. And even the person that you arrested is most likely not to be the main suspect in this. So, instead of retorting to online propaganda, wars and feuds, the government should always stick to giving clear positions that can be convincing to the general public. That is the work of having communication practitioners in any of those very offices. So, you imagine a situation where a serious killer killed over 20 or over 40 people and had been dumping them at Kware and getting away with it, despite the fact that those who reside close to this dump site are by fact members of the National Police Service, and they didn't see anything. The National Intelligence Service didn't know anything in regards to this. And even, how could it be that somebody could be waking up every day to go dump bodies in a quarry without being noticed, even without his neighbors noticing his wrong intentions or actions? This is quite unfortunate, and I don't want to delve so much into it because this is a matter that is currently before the investigative agencies, and maybe you're expecting that they will do us a good job. I've heard, of course, the Azimioko principal, Massacre, has also talked on this, and maybe we can get a snippet of her speech before we proceed on.
Lack of interest, or the value or lack of it they place on citizens. One of the cardinal responsibilities of any government is the provision of security to its citizens. Every Kenyan has a constitutional right to not only be safe and secure, but to actually feel safe and secure. The country spends billions of our tax money on the police and the military to ensure that the citizens can carry out their duties with the knowledge that they are guarded from both internal and external threats. Unfortunately, in the wake of the recent anti-government protests, Kenyans have experienced an unhinged reign of terror through brutality of the police. In some instances, the state machinery has even deployed the military on the streets, something never seen before, not even in the KANU dark days. It is only a regime that is living on borrowed time that unleashes its military on its own citizens. A government that has declared war on its own people. In the midst of the protests, the country has witnessed forced disappearances on a national scale. Abductions of young men and women from all corners of the country. Some have reappeared tortured, like Joshua Okayo from the Kenya School of Law, students governing body, the president actually of that body, and Denzel Omondi, a student at Jomo Kenyatta University, whose lifeless body was found deserted in a Kware in Juja. We are now talking of bodies found in yet another Kware. We know that many others are fighting for their lives in hospitals with injuries inflicted by the security agencies, who are supposed to be keeping us safe, but instead blood spilled on the streets as a result of state brutality. Even before our tears are dry, Kenyans are shocked to see macabre scenes of dead bodies discovered in a pool of sewage wrapped in plastic bags. The similarity in the manner of killing and how bodies of the victims are wrapped speaks of a well-planned mass execution or extrajudicial killings. The government cannot shed crocodile tears like a helpless entity.
And I've also had Moroto, one MP called Samuel Moroto from West Pokot, who has also made some remarks in regard to this.
Marafiki kutoka hata wale wa nje. Juzi nimekuwa sisi na Wanakenya wengine wajumbe pamoja na wale vijana wanafanya parliament. Tumeenda Dubai. Hata ile wakiongea wale wataalamu ya kule Dubai, mwenye alikuwa anachukua sehemu ya kufunza sisi ni Muhindi, anatoka India. Na ni mtu ambaye ni daktari, amesoma mpaka anakuwa daktari. Ni mtu anajua mambo ya research. Hata akasema Kenya ilikuwa inaenda vizuri. Ukiangalia nchi kama Singapore, ni Kenya ndio ilisaidia Singapore mpaka ikafika mahali imefika. Na ikaruka juu ya Kenya. Sasa ndio tunataka kusema kwamba waje sasa tupishane na wale watu wetu ambao tuliwaenua kama Singapore na sehemu zingine. Alafu sasa nini tunataka kufanya? Kama hiyo watoto aditi wengine nasema ni 9, wengine nasema ni 6 na mili watu wamekufa. Hata wanaanza kupishana kwa namba bila kusema kwamba jamani nani alifanya hii kitendo ya kuua vijana wadogo. Hata mmoja ni mtoto wa Chaipa, mtoto ambaye bado ana wazazi wake na wana majirani. Hata sasa anachangiwa pesa ya huyu mtoto kusoma, na sasa mwingine anachukua tu uhai yake namna hii. Hii sisi kama Wanakenya, hata hapa West Pokot kulikuwa kuna mambo ya Katarasli na Sebei watu wetu hapa hivi, lakini ukienda leo shule kama hii kuna watoto kutoka Sebei Uganda pande ile nyingine, kuna watoto kutoka Karamojo wako hapa, kuna watokana. Hata nimeona wasasi wengi wanatoka Trans Nzoia. Hii ni Kenya ambayo kila mtu lazima ajifunie.
So that is generally the general security situation in this country. And all these, the blame still goes to one man, that is the president. The buck stops with him because he's the one who swore to protect the lives, to protect the constitution, and to ensure strict adherence to the constitution of the land and in respect to the roles of the job description of the office which he swore by when he was elected sometimes in August 2022. So, of course, I've seen also demonstrations that were planned for today within various cities within the country are slowly picking up with some people. I've seen in Kitengela, people have come out, some sections of the Nairobi CBD, people are still trying to keep away from the CBD, but there is heavy police presence in the CBD, as you can see on the pics that I'm sharing on your screens, and the protests are slowly picking up within the country. I've also seen somewhere in Kakamega where some goons were allegedly given rungus to come out and combat the Gen Z protesters, and the Gen Z protesters have also come out and have also de-armed them. They've taken those rungus away from them. There were earlier claims that the rungus were being given from an office of a prominent senior politician from that Kakamega area, and after taking those rungus away from those goons that were given those rungus, the Gen Zs then went shouting, Barasa must go, Barasa must go. So those are quite unfortunate scenes that we are seeing in this country that are likely able to take our country to a civil strife if you are not careful. If it is about protesters protesting, then I believe that the right to protest is enshrined in our constitution, and people have the authority to question the government and get information as per what their government is doing for them. And therefore, be it the government, be it the leaders, they should not retort to cheap stunts such as hiring goons to infiltrate otherwise peaceful protests. You ever ask yourself, what would be the situation when these goons, now we have a clash involving those goons and protesters? Will we have a country? I believe that is the very work of the police to maintain law and order, and thereby seeing pictures such as this, where the police seem to be freely mingling with such goons, is such unwarranted. Not unless we don't have enough police manpower in this country, then is when we should allow for those vigilante groups. You see, the moment you allow for these vigilante groups, then that is what has led to countries like Somalia having political instabilities that the way they've had. Our officers are currently in Haiti. It is as a result of those vigilante groups, because people start to feel that we also need to stand up and protect our interests, protect our property, protect our businesses. So as a result of that, when the police are overpowered, they feel that now they can upwardly take the role of the police in also combating their fellow citizens. And that is what leads to civil strife. It's kind of incitement, you know? And our security agencies have to act with sincerity and have a crackdown on this. There is no way that that one can be condoned in such a century in this country. And of course, we've said the buck stops with the president. You know, in the recent past, we've seen a president who has retorted to flip-flopping. Which way? I saw one of the local dailies, I think it's the Standard, which that was questioning which way for the president, because he's always been giving a lot of explanatory ideas on the protests, on the unrest that are in this country, instead of finding a solution that is amicable to this. You know, yesterday we saw him blaming the Ford Foundation for sponsoring the protests. The other day it was the government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura blaming Russia, blaming financial institutions such as the IMF, you know, and you question yourself as a citizen. What is the relationship between you and Russia? What is the relationship between you and IMF? Those are government-to-government relations. So it should not be given to citizen in the event that now the relations have failed. Now the government should resort to finding amicable ways to dealing with those failed relationships instead of trying to drag citizens in these very acts. Of course, the president is, even in the event of flip-flopping on his speeches and statements, he seems not to be a free man. because the trend that we were used to in the recent past, he was a man on a mission. Almost every month, or if not so, even after 2 months, we could have at least heard that the president has traveled to country X, country Y on diplomatic mission, you know. But ever since those protests began, he's been a confined man. The president is a confined man. He can't, even within the country, there are just select regions that he goes. He can't just go anywhere. He can't just travel outside the country. So it seems, even him, if you look at him, he seems a stressed man, you know. Even on the steps of the State House when he was announcing the cabinet dismissal, he seemed as a very lonely man, and a man who was worried by his decisions and the happenings that were happening in the country. Somebody was even making a joke that ever since the protests began, he's even reduced on the number of counter suits that he wears, and has retorted to just throwing blames here, blames there, here and there. Of course, that is quite unprofessional and unpresidential and unprecedented of him. He needs to be cogent. He needs to, I think he needs to collect up his mind together if at all he's still interested in leading this country. That is it. Because we've even seen the recent appointments and resignations within the security sector, and the blames that have gone to the security sector in regards to the forced disappearances and abductions that we've witnessed in this country. Of course, on the day that the IG of police, Japhet Koome, resigned, the president did some changes some on an acting capacity, then some on permanent capacities within the National Police Service. We saw the transferring of William Yampei to the police operations at the Vigilance House. Yampei has been a very professional and a disciplined officer in the National Police Service. He's been the Presidential Commandant Unit Head. But then that very appointment of Yampei to the Vigilance House to be in charge of operations and logistics, I don't know whether it's logistics, I think it's operations and something, seems to be a very act in it by an act of trying to micromanage the security sector by the president. That is it. In as much as Yampei deserves this, but the president should now stop the act of trying to second people who are closely to him to these security infrastructures. In as much as he wants to have a control of the same, but that might in the end not work for him. So I've even seen some people criticize or have a say on the appointment on an acting capacity of Douglas Kanja Kirosho as the acting Inspector General of Police. You know, Douglas Kanja Kirosho, the current acting Inspector General of Police, is from Madeira in Nyeri constituency, where the current CDF of our Defense Forces, Charles Kahariri, yes, is also from. And that is the same location or sub-location or sub-county that our Deputy President is also from. So there are some analysts trying to analyze it, saying that, you know, it might pose a security situation or a security concern to this country. What of in the event? I don't know. I don't want to go that direction of talk, but then you can fill it up for yourself. So I tend to think that Ruto has only two options, which one is either to listen to what the Gen Zs are saying and do them with utmost sincerity. Be sincere with them. Do whatever they want, because they are a representative of the population that elected you. And so, if they're demanding for things A, B, and C to be done, what is the problem with that? Yes, in otherwise, that is why you rose to that office. That is why you campaigned. That is why you wanted to be the president of the country. So when people are demanding for accountability and transparency from you to be accountable to them, then give it to them. Then maybe our country shall have peace. But in the event that Ruto or the president wants to flip-flop on the same, wants to do otherwise, wants to say this today, tomorrow do that otherwise, then maybe we might see an unfortunate situation where people have been calling for Ruto must go, that maybe he might be forced to resign. I'm not saying that he's going to do that, but then he has only two options: to either resign or listen to what the people are saying and give to the people whatever the people are demanding, because the sovereign power belongs to the people. Whether it's written on the constitution or not, the power belongs to the people, just by the virtue that the people elected you to this office. And so it is not wrong to say that, you know, Ruto has been part of previous governments that have been in this country, whether as an MP, as a cabinet, or as a minister, you know, as a deputy president. He has been part of the government, and I believe that most of the issues that the Gen Zs are raising, he's aware of them. He's in governments that have been having these challenges. I saw him resigning on the decision to get Vijana to Kazi Mtaani, back to the public works Kazi Mtaani, a decision that he quashed earlier. So it means that he knows the challenges, he knows these issues, and his pretense, the more he pretends not to understand these issues, the more he finds himself in an awkward position. So he must take a radical shift at this very moment and stop the mocks that he's doing on the Gen Zs by flip-flopping on whatever he's saying. And then we should also stop this culture of trying to infiltrate the demos by the goons. I'd explained that earlier. So, you know, somebody once said that a corrupt government applies propaganda where PR does not work, and also the same way they apply PR where propaganda does not work. So this is what we should try to avoid. If we want to deal with PR issues, let's deal with PR issues. If we want to deal with propaganda, then I don't think if that is going to work in this age of awakeness and generation, especially the manner in which it has been portrayed by the Gen Zs. Also, another weak link in this is the DCI and other security operatives in this country. You know, the situation that the DCI found itself yesterday is quite unfortunate for a professional forensic body like that, that is almost entrusted with major security operations and intelligences within this country. So it's a moment for them to refocus and reearn the public trust. I've even seen cases and instances where the public officers seem, the police officers seem to be very much disturbed people by the protests. Sometimes they are overwhelmed. Sometimes they don't know how to respond to these protesters, despite the pressures that are coming from their seniors. And, you know, it's a general feeling. Even them, they are feeling the high cost of living. They are feeling these issues. And so they are very disturbed people. In some instances, you don't even want to blame them. Of course, the wars are just continuing. I've even seen today a decision by the president to suspend the cabinet, and especially the Attorney General of Kenya, that is Justin Bundi Muturi, has taken a different shift and turn. There are about 7 people who have moved to the High Court, and they are now petitioning the court in order to compel the president to rescind his decision, because they're saying that the president acted beyond his powers by expelling the AG from the office, because as per the Constitution of Kenya 2010, I think it's about Article 248 of the same, 248, 249 talks on the same, that, you know, the office of the Attorney General is one of the independent and protected offices, and I think it's under the independent offices. Thank you for watching. That marks the end of our analysis. My name is Frank.